Okay, I'll just start again because I'll start again. I'll start again because I just restarted the recording. So we're gonna be learning React today by building a weather app. Yeah, we'll touch APIs, React components, props, uh, React hooks, and styling. Okay. So if you don't have Node.js already installed, to use React, Node.js is a requirement. So you should go to the Node.js website and install the correct version that you need, Windows or Mac. You download the installer and they'll go walk you through a bunch of steps. So once Node is already installed, you're going to open your editor. I use Visual Studio Code and go navigate to a folder. We're going to create our first React app by issuing these Node commands. Also, backpedaling a bit, if you want to check if you have Node properly installed, you could just issue node-v and your version will pop up. I have an older version, but it doesn't really matter too much. So to create our first React app, we issue npx create React app, followed by the name of your React project. So I will call this weather app. And once you have that, npx create React app, weather app, or whatever you want to call this project, hit enter. And oh fuck. Can't name these pages. Okay, let me do this one more time. React create React app. I think we're not allowed to use capitals. Let me do this. Weather. Please run. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can't use capitals when you're creating your project. My bad. So right now, Node is creating your very first React app, which you could base your project off of. It's just a template you could use. So right now, we're just going to wait. Yeah. Okay. All right, this takes like a couple of minutes or something. It's like 2 or 3 minutes. So I don't know, find something to do. Okay, well, that's quicker. So what we just did is um, we had React create our first React application project. Now, to start, to run our app that we just made into terminal. Actually, no, I'd have to. Right now, it creates a folder. We've created a folder within your folder, and it'd be much easier if we just navigate to the folder that Node just created. So open folder. We just created something called weather app. So we open this folder in Visual Studio Code. Okay, there we are. Now to run this, what we got to do is open a terminal. We issue the command npm start. And it is going to run our starter code that Node has made for us. So Just wait 1 sec. And that's our first React app in which we did not do anything to create. This is just the stuff that comes on building our template. So that's how we run our website. npm starts from the terminal. Okay. So what we just downloaded or created via the terminal is our weather app folder, which has other folders containing resources for our project. So there's our source folder and our public folder. Node modules, it's just, we don't really need to worry about this. It's just like utilities and resources. So we have our HTML, our default HTML page that is used to run this starter page. We have a bunch of pictures that we're not going to use. We have app.js. I'll go into this later, but right now you could just delete everything in here so we could start a project. All of that. We just delete that from app.js. What else? Oh, that's it. So I was going to talk about more. Oh, index.js. We're going to leave this exactly the same, and I'll go into this later. And yeah, that's that. In public, we store just resources like images or HTML. You can make another folder for that, but that's how it just comes right out the package. And in source is where we store most of our files. Now, we're going to create a new folder within source called components. I spelled that right. And we're going to create another folder called styles. Components, we'll have our React files, our JSX files, in which we'll use to output, well, output JSX, but it's basically HTML into our application. So that's what we're gonna store in our components file for styles. It's gonna be our styling CSS files. Off the bat, we are gonna create our first React file, title.jsx. You could call it title.js, but I just call it JSX. Doesn't matter. We're going to create a second file called search.jsx. Search.jsx is going to be handling our call to the weather API and outputting the search bar section out to the screen. Oh, I got track on this. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Title is just going to be our first React component. This component is gonna output HTML or JSX to the screen for the title of our project. And our last component is going to be forecast today. JSX. Again, that's going to output the weather forecast for the day. I'll go if you don't get it, if you don't understand really, I'll be going more into these as we go along. So to start off, we're going to write our first React component. Now, a component is a function that returns JSX. JSX is basically HTML with the optional use of infusing JavaScript into it. So first, we'll write function for forecast today. I'll set a start with title. Whoops. Get out. Function title. And we're gonna type a return statement with some opening closing brackets. And this is where this is the JSX I keep referring to. It's basically HTML with just some modifications. Uh, a requirement for returning JSX from a component. This is a component. A requirement for returning HTML is that you wrap your main content in some sort of block tag or a wrapper tag, such as div or nav, a nav tag, or something like section. Any of those wrapper tags for content is is required to it's required as the first tag in our return statement for this functional component. So we're going to return, let's see, the text weather app. Okay, so that is our first React component. Well, we'll see what this does in a second, but first, um, first we would need for this to uh, render. We type export default title. Basically, what that line does is uh, it allows other JavaScript files to import this function. So, and we'll see what I mean by that in a second. So we're going to import this title.jsx file in our app.js file. So import include the path to the title.jsx file in your import. So current directory components title. Okay. And end with a semicolon. Now that we've oops, forgot something. Import title from. Yeah, there we go. I make mistakes. Now that we imported this component, this title component, into app.js, we can call the component by just issuing title. Basically, what this tag means, this tag returns this HTML, or technically it's JSX, this JSX code right here into this function, which will then be rendered in this file. We save all that. So in the index.js file, we have a root, and basically what this root is that the React DOM, it latches onto an element on our HTML page over here. So this root is going to be the element on our HTML page with ID root. So this div right here. And we're gonna render this component, our app component. What is our app component? A title component, and which is this. So basically our app component is just in Java, it would be like public static void main, our main method, where we call our components in which we use to lay out our web page. Now that that's done, we are going, okay, those are the import components. Components have source directory. Okay, now about linking error. Let's see what this is about. Oh, my bad. Mhm. Okay. Some reasons this isn't rendering at the moment. Did I mess something up? Let's see. Okay, just looking at my notes right now. Do we have any console errors? Sorry, guys. I don't know why this came up. Errors. User message. Hmm. Please render. Still not rendering. Bro. Okay, I could fix this. Hmm. No, let me just restart this terminal again. So npx starts. Oh, npm start. My bad. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, that works too. Yeah, Daniel, price running title is return. Hmm. 3 seconds. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. That's like the stupidest thing. I don't know. I'm like freezing up here. Thanks for that. I literally made the biggest, like the stupidest mistake here. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes. Okay. There. Okay, npm starts. There. Oh yeah. Thanks, Daniel. Really stupid of me. Okay, so basically, back on track. Uh, we've rendered our title component, by placing it in our main component, our app component. And that is called in our index.js file. That's basically the hierarchy of things. That being said, we're going to move on to our search component, and this is going to be responsible for uh, this calling our API and displaying its data. So first, we're going to create a function component search. in the end, we're not going to make a mistake and forget about our return statement and just leave it there for now. And we're to import use state, and that's it for now. So what we need to do is create a hook. Which is it's like a utility predefined by React that lets us do stuff. So in this case, we do const data set data. In functional components or React components, we can't write just random code like let x equals 0. We can't write code we can't write code in variables within functional components. All code that we write that isn't part of our return statement has to be within a function. Or if we're going to create variables, it's going to be a state variable like such. So data is going to be our variable, and set data is how we're going to set the data. So use states. And what this line does, what use state does is we initialize our data variable. In this case, data is going to be an object where we're going to store the JSON returned by our API call. So I'll just do an open braces for an object right now. We're also going to need another variable called location. And our setter for our variable location. Again, we're going to use the use state hook. And a location is just going to be the string. The location is the input of the city we want the weather forecast as. So that's set. Now we're we're just laying things out right now. We're going to have this function that we'll use to do work for us called call API. We're going to use this to call our API or weather function API. That I'll show you guys later. And lastly, we'll have a function to handle changes within our return statement. So if a user inputs, say Toronto, in one of our input fields, this function, this event handler, is going to get that data and set it to our state variable location. So that is all our content for this function so far. Basically, think of a function as a component function. So this as a class in Java, and we just have a bunch of methods to do work inside of it. Okay. Right, to show you guys the API we're going to be using. It's a free API on Rapid API. I could just put the link in the chat right now if you want. So here we have the weather API, and it has a bunch of different requests that we can use from. So it's called weatherapi.com. To use it, we go to pricing, and there's a free version which gives us 1 million requests per month, and all you got to do is sign in to GitHub and subscribe to this, and it's that easy. So going back to it, we will be using the forecast weather API. Or no, wait. Which API are we using? Yes, we'll be using this API. Well, this URL. That's, I should have prepared beforehand. Forecast weather. Here in Rapid API, we could see some of the parameters. So the URL that activates this, that requests this API, has the parameters as one parameter for our location. In this case, it could be a city, such as London or Toronto, say Toronto. And these we really won't be using. So to test the API, to show you guys how it works, with parameter Toronto, if we click test API, we get our response in JSON, which is kind of like a JavaScript object with key values. So location would be a key, and in that location, it has an object as a value, and current would be a key, condition would be a key, and under those would be a bunch of values. So that being said, go back to our code snippet, copy this data, our options, which would be our credentials to use the API. And we paste it within our call API function, because this is where we will be calling our API. And then we'll be using the fetch API method in JavaScript to call our API. Yeah. And store this in a variable. So what this fetch method returns, what this fetch method returns, oh, my English, is a promise, a JavaScript promise, which would resolve into the JSON we want. So we wouldn't get our data right away. That's why we store it in response. And what we do need to do with response is parse it into JSON. Since we're going to store our API data in our data variable, we'll issue set data, which is a setter for our data variable, and write await response.json. So, also, we should have await over here. Basically, the await keyword lets the program behave asynchronously. So since it may take some time, like milliseconds or seconds, for the API result to come in and the promise to be resolved, the program will be able to function even though it would be stuck on, say, this line right here, line 21. So that's that. Yeah, this is what we do to get our API data. Now we'll go to where we go. Our change function. E is going to represent the value in our input tag, which we will put in our return statement right here. So what this will do, what E will be is the location that we want the weather forecast, that we want our weather forecast to be, and we'll store it in the location state right here. So you write set location, e.target.value. And that gets the value from our input tag that I will be doing right now. So again, the first thing we need to do when returning JSX from a function component is a wrapper tag, such as div or nav or label, something like that. Now we're gonna have a header called, this is for our search bar. Enter city here. Then we're gonna have an input for our location. So it's gonna be of type text. And on change, this is our event listener or our event handler. To say on change, the curly brackets within this JSX HTML means we could insert JavaScript code or values. So we're going to insert our change function. So change and init. Yeah, that's it. So basically, whenever a user types in a letter or character, it's automatically the change function is automatically going to be invoked, and our location variable is going to be updated. So that's that. I'll demo this at the end. We need a button to submit, so that it will be that. And when our user clicks this button, we're going to call our API with the location we have saved from our user input. So we're going to say when the buttons click, run call API, the call API function. And for the text, we're just going to say submit. Okay. All right, let's see how this looks so far. All right. Before we do anything, to see what we've done so far, we issue export default search. This is so that other JavaScript files can import this search function. So in our app file, our main file, say import search from our current components search. Basically, this is a path to our search file. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna say search. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I didn't save yet. Okay. Oh,
So
I didn't wrap it in a div.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whoops. Okay. That being said, there we go. We rendered from our search.jsx file. We have rendered what we return from our function, which is this JSX code formatting, and put it on the screen. And we could style it later if we have time. But I'll just focus on the functionality and not making errors, apparently. Okay, what else do we need to do? We need to do one more thing, and it's our use state. We set it to our initial value, which is an empty object. Oh, we'll get back to that later. Now we'll do forecast today. So we'll create our function components. Function forecast. And here we're gonna have something called props. Basically, inner tag, such as this, where we call our components, we can pass in certain properties or arguments that is data, and we could use that data in our functional components. And that data that is passed in through this props parameter can be interchanged, which is really useful. So in forecast today, we're just gonna all we're gonna do is return JSX. Okay, and it's gonna be a header called today's forecast. And we're going to access the property passed into this using our curly brackets. We're going to be doing this back in search JSX when we set. Actually, no, we can do it. Actually, we can do it now. Pretty much done search. So we props dot info dot location dot name. Basically, what this is that our API data is going to be passed in through this props parameter. And I'm calling that data from what the results of our API call here. So that would be over here, forecast. Yeah, it would be one of these. Anyways, that's the pass to our data that would come from our API call. Now next, we would define another section with another div. And it would display the date of this forecast. So we would write props dot info dot location dot local time. And again, if you didn't pick up before, the curly brackets lets us input JavaScript into our JSX, and that JavaScript will be from our props that we'll pass in. There's date and there's weather. Condition dot text. Okay, that's that. And for future reference, we're gonna give our elements a class name for our styling if we get to it. I'll call it forecast. Next one will be oops. Content. And that should be that for now. And to make sure that our calls to our property is aligned, we will need to set our data to an initial value. That's not an empty object that we have right now. So it's going to be a JavaScript object with key location or yeah. So the location object, have name, properties of name. What else? Propose, country, and local time. So yeah, so this is an object of objects. There's a location object with these properties and a current object with properties. Well, property condition with another object, text, Text and icon, because we'll display a picture. I'm not even sure if I'll have time for this. If we do, okay. What am I doing wrong? Um, oh, there. Forgot a comma. So that being said, now that we've done our forecast and search components, we're going to need to use our forecast component within our search component. So our forecast component is a child of search. First, we need to import it. Import forecast from, what's our directory look like? Oh, current directory. So our current directory, and yeah, forecast today. Now that we've imported our components, we can say forecast today and render it to the screen. No errors. Okay, awesome. We okay, our search component is also there. Oh, whoops. Again, forgot to remember to export your component from your JSX file. So default export forecast today. All right, that's correct. Export default. That said, oh yeah, we forgot our property. So our property in forecast, because we said our parameter for this function is a property that we call props. We're gonna put a prop in our tag, in our component tag called info, and it's gonna be set to the data. It's gonna be set to the data, which is going to be our API info that we receive. Now that's done, we're gonna edit our API URL so that it will take whatever input we get from the DOM. Okay. So I just replaced a single quotes with the grave symbol in order to format strings. So in here, we're gonna input the location that we want our forecast to be. So location. And this is due to our state variable location right here. Okay, our property is in our tag, and that's going to be our API data. Let's test this out. Before I test this out, am I missing anything? Don't think so. All right. So here it is so far. If we want to get the weather in Toronto, we would say Toronto and submit. Oh, here it is. The date today is 2023, January the 27th. It's 4:49 and the weather is overcast. Okay, 10 minutes left. Or I could go over, I guess. We can do some styling. We can style it a bit. In our styles folder, we're going to include some CSS files. So let's call it search.css. Uh, title.css. and forecast today.css. Get rid of this. So we'll start with our title. We are going to format our this div element in our title component. So we're going to say identifier the div element. We'll say class name title. Okay. Whoa. Title and the style class title. How are we going to style this? We're going to align it. One sec. Text. Center. And we're going to change the font size. 35 pixels. Oh, we also have to import our CSS file, our CSS title.css into our JSX component. JSX file. So import. See the path. Okay. Parent directory, styles, and title.css. And there we go. We've updated our app so far with the styling of our title. Next would be style our search. So we're going to give this a class name to identify. What should we call it? Should call it search. And call it main. And that's all we're gonna style this div, our main div. So we're gonna go to search.css. Styling. How are we gonna style this? This is so we're going to center, or no, we're gonna leave some space between the title and our component. So here we go. Let's see what that does. Oh, I haven't even imported it yet. We're gonna make the border 5 pixels solid. And we're going to center it, our components. Okay, now that we've styled our search component the way we want, we need to import it into our required file. Import directory files search.css. Please run. Okay. Yeah, that's that. I guess we'll move on from that. And lastly, we need to format our forecast. So we already have class names there. So class forecast. We're going to give it a border, solid red. We'll have widths 40 widths. We're going to center it. We'll try centering it. And give it some space from its parent elements, or the element directly above it, I meant. Oh. What else we gotta do? We're going to style our header. So we're gonna style the header tag. on top. We're gonna say, oh, we're gonna give it no margin, so no space on its top parts. And then lastly, we're gonna style our content tag. Okay. Ugh. Now that that's said, last thing, import our CSS file. Our parent folder, go into our styles folder, and this is called what? Forecast today .css. See how everything looks? Not great. Oh, wait. Yeah, it looks terrible. Okay. Uh, uh I'll just get rid of our search, some of the stuff in our search CSS file. It's 50%. Get rid of that. Or not. Hmm. Okay. Just to unmess this up, I'm gonna try to unscrew this. Um, this works. Bruh. Okay. It's my time up. All right. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's salvageable, right? It's usable. There was an attempt. Yeah. Again, general overview. Uh, let's see. What country do we want to see the forecast of? Let's say, I mean, what city? Say Paris or something. We submit forecast in Paris for this date. The weather is very misty. And if we say, let's see, London, our forecast in London and this date, our weather would be clear. Or if we say uh, New York or something, it'd be sunny. And basically, that's that. Okay. Yeah, maybe I should have worked more on our styling. But other than our styling, the point is, today we covered React components, the use state hook, so we can use variable data within our functions, APIs, and the fetch API, JSX, returning JSX, and generally rendering components to the screen in app.js and index. Okay, you guys have any questions? Questions. Yeah, at least the app is functional, Ben. Yeah, that's what matters. Okay. Where can we find recording of the workshops? I'm sure it'll be uploaded in the Discord server. And I'll upload one of the tests, like the actual, like a better version of what I did right now, where the styles actually work. Yeah, I'll link my good repository for this. Okay, so I guess that's that. All right, I'm closing now. Stop share. Okay, thank you guys for coming. And yeah, I hope you learned something. Good luck tomorrow if you're going.